Thank you. I'll try to keep you entertained over the next hour as your kids are beginning their first high school experience. For those of you who aren't quite sure what's going on, they are in the process of linking up with their Link Crew members. So each group of 6 to 8 students is going to be linked up with a junior or senior and begin that process of kind of building a small group, very similar to Webb that they had in the middle school, to kind of help them transition to the high school. We'll talk more about what Link Crew looks like a little deeper in the presentation, but tonight's all about for them to kind of get them away from you guys a little bit. And I saw a lot of them when they walked in the building walk away from you and wanted nothing else to do with you. But that won't always be the case, I can tell you that. So they're going to do that for about the next hour. We'll be done at about 7:20. If you have questions, I'll stick around and answer questions and things like that. And this should be done around 7:30. If by chance you got here late, you didn't get a chance to walk around the building will be open tomorrow. You can stop by any time. If you didn't have a chance to find classrooms or things like that, you can certainly come and do that. Tuesday, your kiddos, the 9th graders, are going to start at 8:20. Again, go through, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but they're basically going to spend the morning working with their Link people again. They'll have plenty of time for those people to kind of help them find classrooms, find lockers, make sure those lockers open, because they're not easy to open, especially once you screwed up the first time and your hands get all sweaty, and then it's almost impossible to get that open. They'll take them through lunch and how to get lunch and all that other good stuff, and then we'll have a modified schedule in the afternoon, and we come back on Wednesday and kind of start school for real. So that's kind of the process they're starting. So I'm going to kind of intermix some nuts and bolts stuff and kind of why we look the way we do and kind of the approach that we take and the opportunities that we're going to give your students beginning in 9th grade through their senior year. So kind of the first thing is our FHS admin team. All right, they're busy doing stuff, so instead of me having them come down here and come up on stage, I have pictures, which are way better for these people. And so our admin team is broken up a little uniquely. So 2 years ago, we kind of looked at our strategic plan and said, you know what? The conversations that we have with 9th graders and 10th graders is significantly different than the conversations we have with 11th to 12th graders. So instead of having AP share all 4 of those grades, it makes some sense to have our assistant principals break up by grade level so that they can be consistent on it. Just so happened that this guy, Mr. Pickens, and that's a real picture of him. I know sometimes people think it's Photoshop, but that's really what it looks like. And if you had a chance to go up to the media center today, you can see in real life, he does really look like that. So he actually has a passion for 9th grade. He was a 9th grade math teacher, and so he stepped forward and said, I really want to do this. So when you start to work through your 9th grade year with your son or daughter, you have questions, you have concerns, you have things you think need to be handled, or you have anything, Mr. Pickens is kind of that go-to person. Obviously, I'll help with that, but he does a lot of the point things with that. It can be your first point of contact. And then in the 11th and 12th grade year, we moved to Miss Pierce. And again, she's really starting to get those kids ready to leave this building for whatever they're going to go into and kind of have those conversations and help kids prepare for that with our counselors. Mr. Miller deals with student discipline. We have a little different approach to that, but he's kind of the go-to person for that. So if you have concerns about potentially not nice behavior, not treating people nicely, those different things, kids not getting along, bus things, all those different things that sometimes get in the way of our educational stuff. Mr. Miller can be that go-to person. He also works with our alternative ed programs. We have a couple different ones directly in our building, but he's also our go-to guy when we want to get flexible. We know that we're a building of 2,100 students, and as much as we try to do things differently and really tailor to students, we are still a school of 2,100 kids, and we can only do so much. But he is really, really good at thinking about different ways and flexible ways to do things. So, we totally understand if things don't go well or start to go well and we don't feel like this is the right place. We don't want to take offense to that. We actually look for that as opportunities to try to support students, and a lot of times he can be that go-to person. And then Mr. Cheetah is our athletic director and our activities director. And I'll post all this stuff on our webpage tomorrow, along with this fine video that Mr. Mathis is doing for us. So if you missed anything and you want to rewind it because I was super funny in one section, you can most certainly do that and listen to that over and over again. Or if you're a significant other, or you want to show your son or daughter, they can take a look at this too. But I'll get that on the webpage tomorrow at some point in time. Our counseling department. So, our building is designed, we have 3 levels. We have basically 2 offices in our building. The second floor office, right when you walk in, is where all the administrators are and where our attendance people are. And then the 3rd floor office is where our counselors are, our registrar, school psych, and things like that. So schedule changes, things like that, questions about post-secondary options when it gets to be that time, any of those questions about career planning and things like that will run through our counseling department. All right? And some of you may have already had an opportunity because you had a hole in your schedule. Don't worry if it's a blank. That means something didn't work. The counselors work to get that fixed. If it's 3rd trimester, they're super busy right now, so they may wait till school starts to get that filled. But we'll get those classes filled. We want to make sure that everybody's got something for 1st trimester. I build the schedule. Most 9th graders should have most things that they requested, but we do run into some things. But again, if you have questions or, you say, I don't know if this is the right class or that's the right class for them, these are the go-to people to help with that. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit, if you haven't been in the building, in the last 5 years, your traditional vision of a secondary building doesn't really match what we are anymore. Even though we still look like this, we still have a 5-period day, our take and our intent and what we're trying to support students in doing is very different than when I started teaching in 1993, 94. Yeah, when you guys were, that's what you get for sitting in the front row. So it's very different in terms of what we're trying to prepare our students to do and get them ready to be when they leave their building. We have 2,100 students, and we don't profess to say that all of our students need to go a 4-year school, a 2-year school. So they have all sorts of different things that they can go into. And we want to give kids those opportunities. And really, through RAMP, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and work with our counselors, we want to give kids opportunities to investigate those different options that are out there. And so, even though we're super big, we don't try to go one-size-fits-all as much as we can. And our strategic plan is something that we really work towards and drives what we do. So you can see kind of what our mission is, what we're trying to become, and then how we do that. And again, this is on our webpage. It's very similar to our district strategic plan, but you don't see anything really about standardized test scores and things like that. We are bigger than that. We're trying to prepare kids for things that we don't even know may exist 5 or 10 years from now. And there's certain universal skills that they need to practice that are more than just content. And we can debate whether or not technology is a good thing or a bad thing. Technology is around. We live in a technology-rich environment, and it fundamentally changes the way that we get information. And so as an education system, we have to look at things differently because kids can get information in lots of different ways. When I taught math, my job was simply to give kids math information. That was it. There was no other way for them to get the math information. Well, they could read the book, but we know nobody's reading the math book. So we have to worry about that. That was my sole job. Well, now information is abundant. So our jobs change fundamentally in terms of putting that information into context and using it in new ways, and drives us to look at our instructional practices. And so that's one of the big reasons that we've really re-examined how we do things. The opportunities that we give students is based on really what we want our students to become when they leave our building. Now, talk about the need for change. And this wasn't too long ago. People probably remember these, right? The first cell phone. And if you were super sweet, you had one in your car, right? It was in right here in between the driver's seat. You flip it open, and you had like a car phone, all right? Those old LTDs and things like that. And that was the sweetest thing ever. But what were those things good for? Simply calling, right? And you had to know the phone number because you couldn't store the thing. It was simply to make a phone call. Now, a good leap from what we had before, where you used to have to use a payphone and call collect, and you have the secret little codes to your parents so that they wouldn't accept the collect call, but they knew that something big had happened, and then they'd say, nope, I don't accept it from that, and they hang up, and you have those little codes. Well, now with cell phones, we could do that. So in the early 90s, that happened. Well, then, 2007 was the big exponential leap, right? The first time that we got an iPhone. And really, what's an iPhone? It's a computer. Now, we took these big, huge computers that people used to have, we minimized them so that everybody could have one in their pocket. So no longer was this device simply just to make phone calls. Now you can text with it, you can find where you need, you don't even need maps anymore. My kids were driving the other day with me, like, well, how'd you used to get places? And you'd say, well, we use maps. And then they say, well, how do maps change? And you say, well, then you were stuck. You know, and then, we got MapQuest, and you would print out the 15 pages on your trip, and then you'd miss a turn, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, I missed a turn, I can't remember what this was. Now you have people's voices talking to you. So that was the next evolution. This changes the way that we could get information. So by the very nature, it should change the way that we look at education. And I know that's hard because I was traditionally taught in a traditional school. Almost everybody in here had the traditional high school experience. Whether it was good or not, that's what we know. And sometimes we aren't able to look at things a little bit differently because that's what we're used to. And then you get the next big change in 2015, right? You got bigger iPhones. Now you have iPads that are about this big, and you have the fancy pens and stuff you can write on. You got a watch that can do stuff and things like that. So again, this technology does fundamentally change our access to information. And so again, if a school's job is solely to give information, we're irrelevant. So we have to really examine how we do that and what that looks like. Here's another thing. I use this example all the time. How many people have something they want to find out about and go right to Google? Hey, you have to raise your hand. It's almost everybody, right? We Google it. Or we ask Siri, one of the two. That's what we do. That's where we look for information. All right? How many people have done this? Okay? Yeah, I got to do something. I'm going to Pinterest. Found this sweet pin. And then what happens? You give it a shot. It doesn't look anything like the pin did. But you gave it a shot. You went there for an idea, correct? Or you do what I do, right? We bought a house by Bachman when we moved back, 15 years ago. And it had the old L kitchen. We're like, I don't have money, we're going to refinish this kitchen. So my father-in-law's an old carpenter, so I can help you with that. Fantastic. He goes, but, I think you should redo your floor too. Oh, okay, we can tile the floor. So my brother-in-law's like, yeah, you can tile the floor. Here's what you do, go to YouTube. So what do? Go to YouTube, watch a couple videos. Yep, I think I can do that. And then what do? I go to Home Depot, get all the tiling stuff, right? Everything I need. Go home, watch the video again, try it, no good. Couldn't tile. Couldn't get the ground to work, tiles are coming up and stuff. Well then what do? I can't stop now. Now I go to an expert, right? I still can't be an expert, but then you go to one of those classes. I mean, even when we say, yep, we've changed the way that we actually learn as well. And so have our students. So we have to be reactive when we do it. It doesn't mean all the stuff that we used to do was bad. It's just we can look for new opportunities while using some of that old stuff. But if we don't think Google, Pinterest, and YouTube has changed the way that we learn as a society, then we're not really being truthful with ourselves. All right, here's another interesting thing that I found this summer. We were at a workshop about design thinking, okay? Really, it's kind of an opportunity to give kids a way to problem solve and find problems that are worth solving. Okay? It's really hard sometimes when we focus on content to get kids to think creatively because we as teachers just give them the information all the time and they wait for it. There's no creativity in that. So design thinking gives us an opportunity to turn that over to the student and really become problem solvers. And this is one of the things they talked about. In the 1950s, students graduated, they knew about 75% of the information they would be successful. And now when they look at the amount of information that students actually need, it's about 2 to 5%. And it's not because they don't know more. To be honest, my kids know way more than I did when I was in high school or even college. But the reality is we still don't know what they're going to need when they leave here in terms of what a job may look like or those different things. And so that ability to learn something, unlearn it, relearn it is a valuable skill that we have to give our kids opportunities to do because when I took the principal job, the idea was nothing more what it looks like now. When our teachers started 10, 15 years ago, it doesn't look like it does now. And so that ability to adapt and relearn and unlearn is probably the number one literacy skill that students are going to leave when they leave here. I think it's pretty simple what our top priority is. Our top priority is to prepare kids and give them the skills and the knowledge base they need to do whatever they want when they leave here. That's it. I tell people all the time, if the student has the aptitude and the work ethic, we can give them what they need to go to an Ivy League school. We have kids do it. We had 3 kids go to military academies last year. We can do that. That's not our goal as a school. Our goal is to prepare those kids. I also have kids that are going to DCTC that want to be linemen. I have kids that are going to be apprentices to be plumbers. I have kids that are going to 2-year schools and get a certificate. Our job is to prepare those kids for the skills that they need. Now, the content looks different for all of that. There's no doubt about it. But we do think there's some universal skills that all kids should be able to do. And to be honest with you, if kids leave our building and they can't do this, I feel like we haven't done our job. So the number one thing is talk to adults and advocate for themselves. They need to be able to do that. And you may call me sometime and say, yep, you know, Johnny or Susie's having trouble for a teacher. The first thing I'm going to ask you is, have they talked to the teacher? And I know when it's a 9th grade, it's a little bit different. And we can support them through doing that, either through Mr. Pickens or myself to help that conversation to happen. But as a 12th grader, they should be able to do that. Because when they walk out of our building, they are going to have to do that. And that's an important skill. So we try to give kids opportunities through the classes and through our schedule structure to take advantage of that opportunity to do that. Manage workflow. When they walk out of here, there's not going to be somebody explicitly telling them what to do and when to do it all the time. It's not going to happen. You look at how jobs have changed and the flexibility in jobs and where people work or working from home and all these different things. Yes, there are deadlines, but there's flexibility within those. Kids have to have that opportunity to manage some of that workflow before they walk out of here. Now, we know they're 14, 15, 16, 18 years old. Guess what? Are they going to make some mistakes? Well, of course they are. It doesn't cost anything to go to Farmington High School. We can use that as a learning tool and as a learning opportunity to make sure that doesn't happen if they decide to go to a Mankato State, a St. Cloud State, or into a job and it costs them a job. We want to give them that opportunity to practice those things. Work through interpersonal problems, cope with up and down, productive struggle. It is okay for kids to struggle. It is okay for them to have to work a little bit through things. There's going to be some of your kids in here that have never been challenged. And they're going to take AP US History as 10th graders. And they're going to cry. Okay? And they're going to come to you and they're going to say, I want to come out of this class. And it's going to be really hard. I'll tell you, it's the best class that they can take because they will learn to write. But it will be hard. And getting them through that struggle is a key thing to understand that through perseverance and working with it and sticking through it, that you can still get through that thing okay. And it's not always that end outcome that I got an A. Sometimes it's just, I got through it. That's a success. And then accept challenges and handle failure through perseverance. There's a difference between failing and failure. And our society has not differentiated those two. We put those two together. And unfortunately, our kids have gotten the byproduct that if they don't do well on something, that they are a failure. Failing is key to learning. If we don't make mistakes, we're not going to learn. Mistakes drive the learning process. Now, I'm never, ever going to tile again. I learned I don't want to do that. Okay? But as I went through it, when I did make mistakes, I made sure I didn't have that happen again. Now, I could have opted out at any time and paid somebody to do it. But again, those mistakes drove me to get better at it as I went through something. It's the process, and it's not the outcome. If we get so focused on the outcome, it's going to make it really, really hard for our students to feel valued and successful through that. Okay, personalization. We really talk about this in customization, and really it's just simple shifts. School was built on the adult perspective. Okay? When I taught, I built everything from my perspective. I never took in the student's perspective to this. I never thought, well, how is the student going to experience this? Or how is the student going to interpret this or understand this? And we're working really hard to move from that teacher perspective to the learner perspective. What sort of learning experience is this going to be for the student in that piece? Now, we're not where we want to be. We're moving in that direction, but that's a focus. Learning on demand versus instruction on demand. And I think this is an interesting one. When you all went through high school, it was all about learning on demand. Right? When you took my math class, we did section 1.1 on Tuesday. If you didn't get it, guess what? Too bad. We were going to section 1.2 on Wednesday. Tony's laughing because she was in there. And then you go to 1.3 on Thursday. And 1.4. And it was your job to kind of stay up with that because I was teaching through the whole thing. Now, some of the changes in our instructional strategies allow us to instruct when students need the support. The reality is, not everybody needs the same amount of support and instruction at the same time. If you have multiple kids, you know that. My 20-year-old doesn't need any help. My 10th grader needs a lot of help. It's just the way it is. And so if I try to give them the equal amount of help, I'm giving one way too much that they don't need, and I'm not giving the other one enough. So we're trying to move to this where we give the students the help when they need it with what they need. Focusing on content, that's just giving you information to building capacity and process. Focus on that process. Focus on building skills, competencies that are going to help you in the future. And then the old school model is, yep, if you didn't get it, guess what? You're probably going to fail, and then we'll put you in the class again. And now we try to extend time. Everybody needs a different amount of time to learn concepts, and so if we can build flexibility into that, you don't fail. You're just not done yet. We'll give you more time. Okay? And I think that's an important kind of distinction between that whole idea. So really, if you kind of look at this, I think personalization is pretty simple. This one on the left, everybody gets the same thing. That's kind of what skill was built on. Equality. Everybody gets the same thing. Well, it doesn't really help that dude. He can see anyways. That one's probably just right and didn't help him at all. Well, equity kind of says, all right, this guy doesn't need any support, we're going to let him go. He needs this, and then this person needs additional, we'll help that. Really, this is kind of what we're working towards, giving students what they need when they need it, knowing that not everybody needs the exact same thing. But ultimately, what we'd like to do is get rid of that barrier. And that's, again, a work in progress for us. If we can get rid of the barriers for learning, then these supports aren't needed as much. And again, that's, like I said, that's a work in progress. Mindset's a big thing. You probably, if you read anything about education, you hear about growth mindset and fixed mindset. And that's a tough, tough thing. Because a lot of kids are really deeply ingrained in that fixed mindset. I can't do it. Probably heard that numerous times from your student. Okay? It's a tough cycle to break. But really, we want to move kids out of this fixed mindset and really to that growth mindset. Okay? You can get smarter by working at it. Okay? It is possible. For some kids, math is hard. You can do it, it's just going to take you a longer amount of time. And that's okay, because it's what you need, not what other students need. Got to be willing to try. A lot of kids won't even do anything nowadays, because if I don't do it, I can't be thought as a failure, right? Didn't try it. We would much rather have kids try, fail, figure out what didn't go right, and then support them through that improvement piece. Now, one thing that's missed a lot of times with this is we think that you're either in a growth mindset or fixed mindset. You guys understand what a dimmer switch is, right? Brightens things. Really, this is what this is all about. And helping kids identify when they're in their fixed mindset and moving them towards a growth mindset. I am probably the most positive person I know. How's that for you? And we take chances here to try to help students. And there are days where I walk around and I flip into the fixed mindset a little bit. And then I identify and say, no, I got to get back into it. And so really that's the work for kids, is trying to understand where they're here and get into that growth mindset piece. And then really, if you just think of the power of yet. If you start throwing yet on the end of things, it totally changes that mindset. I'm not done yet. Okay? I can't do this yet. All right, this doesn't work yet, and then I don't know the answer to this yet. If you throw that onto it, there's the possibility that through work and support that you're going to get it. And that is way more positive than, nope, can't do it, nothing can be done. And again, we work really hard with our kids to kind of get that vocabulary out of their mouth. A lot of people, this is kind of our society, we've kind of built this up, you either win or you lose. You're successful or you're a failure. People have to understand that anybody that's any good at anything did this, right? No matter how talented you are or what you want to get good at, it's filled with all these attempts that didn't go well. And that's where the perseverance comes in and the learning piece comes in, fixing those mistakes. So this is my favorite dude. This is Audrey. This is what learning should be about.
I'm Audrey Clements, and I made a Rube Goldberg machine. A Rube Goldberg machine is a machine that creates a chain reaction, a really complicated one, to do a simple task. So, my Rube Goldberg is going to start with this domino being knocked down. They're going to fall all the way up here, knocking down this bowling pin, creating shockwaves, spinning this gyroscope, running down here, pushing the marker top, letting the mini marble run down here, around the spiral, down this ramp, and hitting this switch control power socket. Turning on this toaster. When the toaster's done, this lever will pop up, letting a ball fall out, knocking all the balls off, hitting this paper roll, running down here, hitting this paper towel tube, knocking down this wine glass with a fushigi ball on top. The fushigi ball will fall off and release the pulley, letting this thing fall on the monster. And rule machines don't always work on the first try. So this is my trick: how much successes and how much failures. I think we'll have. This is my hypothesis, and this is the actual. My hypothesis of successes is 2. I think it will have 10 to 20. 10 to 20 failures and 2 successes. And that's my hypothesis. Will teach you, if you don't succeed, try again.
So Audrey's pretty excited about his whole Ruth Goldberg machine, and I show that, and we show that to our staff. We actually show it to our students because it's over the top, obviously, but it's funny, right? I mean, it's super cool. He's excited. He's capturing a monster. Probably you had to do a Ruth Goldberg machine at some point in time. Mine had like 4 things in it that my son did. It didn't have all that. But the idea that accounting for failure or failing as part of the process is key to that. And again, we work really hard with that with our students to kind of get that understanding that it is okay and it's part of the process. Now, part of it too is we are continuing to work to do a better job to make sure that the things that we ask our students to learn is worth learning. And so the design process for us is one of those. We had a group of teachers go and start to work on some project-based learning and things like that. But we truly want to bring out that excitement. And if we can tap into interests and we can tap into passions, we know that kids are going to persevere much more than they were before. This is another interesting one in terms of self-talk.
I'll be fine. I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess.
6th grade, you'll be fine.
Okay. Straight. Do you go faster on the end run?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yes.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Have
It's a
fun.
bigger 20. I got it. Okay. Here. I go. Just the suspense at the top of the first time Frank's here. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now.
Right, just needed the figurative push to go down there. But if you listen to that kid, no negative self-talk, right? No, I can't do this. No, I'm going to crash and burn. And then I saw it the first time. I'm thinking about that old World Ride to Sports back in the 80s where the ski jumper goes down and flips all over the place and things like that. None of that. And so one of the biggest things that families can help us with is to give that figurative push. Let them know that it's okay to try something different, to try something they're not comfortable with. And that usually something good is going to come out of that at the other end. I mean, the quote at the end, well, 60 is not so bad now. It's like, hey, I'm an expert. I can give me the Olympics and away I go. But I think you listen to that. We need to bring back kind of that. For us, the work is to bring back that youthful jubilance around learning. Now, so for us, what does that mean? That means, like I said before, we've looked at our practices, our instructional practices to give these things opportunities. So things do look different. Now, we do have traditional classrooms, and I use quotation marks around traditional because the lecture for 50 minutes in a social studies class that we all had to endure when we were going through school doesn't exist. But we still do have some classrooms that look very traditional, but really more incorporating that problem solving, problem finding, design thinking approach to it. We have flexible learning time. We give kids opportunities when they've earned it to work in different places of the building, to make decisions about when they're going to work, how they're going to work, who they're going to work with. Again, so they start to manage their workflow. Hybrid classes where maybe they meet with the teacher for a little bit, then they go work independently, then they come back. Maybe one day they work in a supervised area, then the next day they work with the teacher. Blended, combination of online and classes at our classroom. Flexibly paced. Kids that know it can go. Kids that need additional help can get that help from the teacher. And then online options. Now, these are all throughout our building. Okay? And at some point in time, your student is going to have that experience. We feel that every student should have an experience in these classes at some point in time. Mainly because when they walk out of our building again, they may never have explicit instruction. They may have to continue their learning, whether it's through a job or some other opportunities, but it may be in one of these formats. And we want to give our kids the opportunity to practice that before they walk out of here. Plus, this gives us a better opportunity to use our teachers' times more wisely. So again, they can provide to support the students when they need it. Kind of that model of teaching on demand instead of having kids learn on demand. It's simple if you want to be successful at the high school. We'll talk to the ninth graders about this. It's stupid. I know, I'm a little teapot, all that other good stuff. But we have a responsibility, this is what we'll tell kids. Our responsibility is twofold. We're responsible for the T, and we're responsible for the academic support. We will give you additional time when you need it if you're working. And that's through our schedule, and that may be extending classes. If you continue to work, and you continue to advocate for yourself, and you continue to put in the time, and you need more time, we will give that time to you. And then academic support. We will provide opportunities for you to get help during the school day. And then the student's job is simple. They need to put the effort in. They need to go to where they're supposed to go, be when they're supposed to be there. They need to ask questions when they need help. They need to advocate for themselves. And as long as they do that, we'll take care of those other two things. And again, some kids need more help with this, and we help with that. But our job is really to focus on these two things, and the students bring that effort part. And that's all the harder it is. So we have two schedules. Okay? This is the no flex schedule. We run this for the first 4 weeks of our each semester. And this is posted online. I'll show you where this is, and I'll send emails out about it, and just read them when you get them. There's information in them. And so the schedule has each of your students scheduled, and you looked at it, had an academic support period, 5 classes, and a ramp. Okay? For this first 4 weeks, they go to everything. And they stay in everything until the teacher uses time differently or things like that. So they need to be here at 8:20. They'll be in class till 3:05. They can use that academic support time. It's like a homeroom. They can use that to go see a teacher the first 4 weeks if they need to. They can do it to make up a test and things like that, but they need a pass to do that. So they got to check in with their academic support teacher, then they can go and get that. Our ramp classes meet on Wednesdays and Fridays. We'll talk about what ramp looks like on Wednesday and Friday. So our Monday, Tuesday, Thursday schedule a little bit different. And then you notice on Wednesdays, we harden out that time for teacher collaboration. So our teachers work together on those Wednesday mornings, so there is no academic support. So technically our students don't have to be here until 8:40. They can still ride the bus. We'll supervise them in the commons and things like that, but they don't need to be here on Wednesdays except for the first one. We have them come the first one. We don't want them to be running around that first one. We'll get them where they need to be. So that first Wednesday they need to be there, then every Wednesday after that. So these Wednesdays in September, they get to practice a little bit of having some of that flexible time in the morning. And then us as administrators and our hall people help to mold behavior during that time and get them to understand what's appropriate and inappropriate. And most ninth graders figure that out pretty quick. The other ones don't. They draw attention to themselves and we have a conversation with them. Our flex schedule. Okay? Our flex schedule is the last 8 weeks, and this is where the time piece becomes a supportive measure. So they have academic support, and now you see there's 7 of them. Okay? These are now flexible learning times. Our teachers will and can assign students to meet with them during that time. If they're assigned, they're expected to be there. Okay? They do need to check in with their academic support teacher, okay, every morning, so the teacher can take attendance and vouch for they're there. If they don't have anything else to do, that's a flexible time. And this is where they can start to advocate for themselves a little bit. If they need help in their math class, their math teacher is available. They can go see them. If they want to go work collaboratively with somebody else, they can go do that. If they were up late last night at an athletic event, they want to do homework, they can do that. If they want to just hang out like people do sometimes, they can do that, as long as they're staying up with their work. They start to fall behind, we become more directive. And that kind of looks like this. The teacher will say, you need to come and see me, this academic support. Or I need to see you this afternoon. Or I need to see you at this point in time. If that doesn't help them, then our 9th grade, we have an SOS program. And I can't remember what it stands for, but really it's telling 9th graders exactly where they have to go and when they have to go there. So we physically assign 9th graders to an academic support class based on a need. So your son or daughter is falling behind and not taking advantage of that flexible time to go see a teacher in physics, we'll assign them to a physics teacher for 3 weeks. And then every morning during this academic support time, they will report to that physics classroom and work with that physics teacher, and we will push in with National Honor Society tutors to help. So there'll be an adult and usually 3 or 4 students in there to help. You need help with math? Guess what? Not taking advantage of flexible time? We will assign you to a math class for those 4 weeks. Need help with English? Guess what? You go to English for 4 weeks. Now, that usually helps kids to get to understand that if they don't make the choices that we want them to make, then we'll tell you what to do. But we're going to give them that opportunity first. And most kids, after we kind of assign them through that first 3 weeks, they figure out, I'd rather make that decision on my own. It's way easier. I can work with the teacher and get that done. So we work more closely with our 9th graders in directing them where to be and when to be there. And Mr. Pickens will be the one to do that. You'll actually get an email from him that says, your son or daughter has been assigned to Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so for SOS this week. We take attendance, it goes through the whole 9 yards. We can, if you have concerns and you're not quite sure that your son or daughter is making those decisions, we can help kind of facilitate that as well. And again, Mr. Pickens will do that. But we start by giving them the opportunity to make that right decision. And then as they show they need more support, we push in with more support. And again, this is the last 8 weeks of the trimester. Here's our yearly schedule at a glance, and again, this is on, if you go to our homepage, I have a calendar, there's a calendar on the side, this is all on there. We have 2 district-wide flex days, the 13th and the 16th of February. Again, teachers will work with students ahead of time to kind of talk about what those activities are they do that day. Most of them can even get done before that day, or they're over a longer period of time where they have time to get that stuff done. We have a post-secondary assessment day, and this actually is a day that our juniors take the practice ACT and our 10th graders take the pre-ACT to kind of get them prepared for that assessment that they're going to take their junior year that kind of can be used for college admittance. And then our 9th graders on that day, that's the day they go on that 9th grade retreat. Last year was the first day we did that retreat, and it was awesome. We only had 8 kids not go. We actually had kids that weren't going to go, showed up that day and said they wanted to go, and we had to figure that out. Your kids are hemming and hawing about it. I get it. It's a good experience. It gets kids together. It gets them to work on things. It gets them to understand that we don't always have to agree with everybody. We don't always have to love everybody. We don't always have to like everybody. We just don't have to hate everybody. And that's a big thing that we need to work on. And this is that opportunity. This is an extension of our Link Crew activities. They build up to this. And actually, our seniors, we use our seniors and juniors to come in and support that. Our seniors wanted to have their own respect retreat after. They're like, we didn't get to do this very well. It's too late to get it done. But it is a powerful thing. It is worth going to. And I know that some people are turning that stuff in. If you haven't turned it in, don't worry about it. You can send it with your student. They can drop it in the second floor office anytime. We'll take them. We want everybody to go. Finals, okay? We run alternate schedules on our 2 days of finals. So on the 29th, the 7th, and the 6th, they'll take their first hour final, third hour final, and fifth hour final. And then on the 30th, 8th, and the 7th, they'll take a 0 hour final if they have that. There's a few kiddos that have 0 hour. They'll take 2, and they'll take 4. Okay, so we split up the finals so they don't have to study for everything at once. These 3 days are early release days. Okay? The buses will come pick kiddos up at, I think it's noon on those days. Teachers will be here all day, so if somebody's behind on something and needs a little extra time, guess what? You have extra time. We will also use these district-wide flex days to invite kids come in that need extra time. They love that. So, but you need more time, we'll find it for you, sort of a thing. So again, we try to use these as best we can to support things. And we go through it. And again, like I said, it's all online. You can dig that stuff out if you want it. So Link Crew, talked a little bit about that. That's our transition program. Okay? And so I'm not going to read this for you. You can take a look at it when I post this later. But we continue this. So the kids will meet with their Link Crew mentors the first 4 Thursdays of each trimester when we're in that no flex schedule. When they have to be in academic support, we'll pull them on Thursdays, and they'll continue those activities the whole year. So they're going to continue with that group. They're going to continue with those 2 Link mentors so that they do kind of a home group that they're connected with. And then again, culminating in kind of that 9th grade retreat in kind of the middle of the year to build off some of the work and things that we've done. Ramp Up to Readiness is our post-secondary readiness program. That is every Wednesday. So our teachers will go through curriculum based on grade level. I'll make it really simple. 9th grade is about figuring out high school. How do I figure out my GPA? How do I find academic success in the building? What is growth mindset? They do inventories that start to look at interest. Am I more growth mindset? Am I more fixed mindset? A lot of it is getting to know themselves and getting to understand how to be successful in the building. 10th grade year, they start to investigate and look at careers and job choices that interest them. 11th grade year, they start to investigate and say, whoa, if I want to go into this career, or I want to go into this job field, what sort of education or training do I need when I leave this building? And using that information to start to build their schedules to support that. And then 12th grade year is all about celebrating getting through high school and getting them ready to be admitted or into whatever program that they want to get into. That's a snapshot of what those are. We've liked it. I know the kids don't always like it because they don't see the value in it. We work really hard to show that. But it gives them an opportunity to start to really think about, what do I want to do when I leave here? What skills do I need? And how do I have to enhance that when I leave the building? So when our kids make a decision and say, yep, I'm going to a four-year school, they've really thought that out. They're not just doing it because they think they have to. We don't want anybody making that decision. Four-year schools aren't for everybody. Whatever they want to do, we want to give them that opportunity to do that and work them through that process. So here's ramp, Wednesday's second hour. We also have ramp on Fridays. Fridays, basically, we have a really good video production group. They do Tiger News. So we have kids that do newscasts every Friday. So that's what they do on Fridays. They still run that same schedule. First day of school, we talked a little bit about this. They're going to show up at 8:20. We're going to make them feel really uncomfortable in the building because we're all going to be there shaking hands and fist bumping and things like that, which they hate, but it's kind of fun to see them squirm. So we'll do that. Then they'll go into the gym, they'll find their link people again, and then we'll be link crew stuff that whole morning. Again, getting them comfortable to what it's like to be in the building, who they connect with, check that locker stuff again, make sure they know where their RAM teacher is. We'll take them to lunch together, and then by the time we hit the afternoon, then we go through our classes, and again, just those short periods to give the teachers, to give them a quick introduction of what the class is like. Hopefully when they registered, they took it and they read what the class was like before they took it. And then if they need any special supplies, I know we get a lot of questions on school supplies. We don't have it because you just need your basic stuff, and there's a few special things in some classes, but if you're not in those classes, it doesn't really matter. So if they have some folders, they have some notebooks, pencils, general things, highlighters, everybody loves highlighters, get highlighters, bring that sort of stuff. They should be good to go. Nuts and bolts, okay, attendance. Real quick here. So if you know your student's going to be gone, you're going to talk to Ms. Wolf, call as soon as you can, please, please, please. Okay? If you're going on an extended absence or a vacation, we actually have a waiver under attendance that you fill out. You know, hockey trips and things like that. But doctor's appointments, call Ms. Wolf. If your student needs to leave to go to an appointment, call Ms. Wolf. She'll have a pass ready. Here's the deal though. It probably won't be ready till first hour. All right? It takes her time to get through everything. Kids hop right off the bus like, is my pass ready? Well, not quite yet. Come back in a little bit. So by first hour, it's usually ready for them to go. Now, here's a little trick. Okay? Guess what? Your student is unexcused. All right? It happens every once in a while. Sometimes it's our mistake. Kid comes in late and they're tardy and we mark them absent. We don't change it. Or every once in a while, high school kids make a bad decision and go hang out and stuff like that. It happens. We notify you. 2 ways. You will get an email. We send out emails 3 different times during the day. At 11 o'clock, at 1 o'clock, at 3 o'clock. That covers all our classes. If they are unverified, you will get an email. Okay? Now, the system doesn't let us say exactly period, but if you get an email and you're not sure, call Ms. Wolf. She will tell you. Or go on to Family Web Access, you can see what it is. All right? We send out a phone call at 6 o'clock at night. It's an automated phone call. Now, kids lie, and so here's what's going to happen. Dude, I got a phone call, you were absent. It's just tardy. We don't send phone calls or emails for tardies, all right? You can just debunk that right now. If they tell you we're tardy, we don't send phone calls for that stuff. Only absences. So if you get a phone call or an email, it is about an absence and not a tardy. I can guarantee you that. Don't fall for it was just a tardy. The other thing I would suggest you do is you should, and if you don't, get yourself access to Family Web Access and go on and look. Because the other thing they'll say is, well, it was academic support, I forgot to check in. It's not always academic support, they didn't forget to check in. Okay? If you get that phone call, go in and check what it is. All right? And then we can start to figure out where they were. And again, sometimes it can be our mistake and things like that. We'll get it fixed. Sometimes they didn't do what they're supposed to do. We'll have that conversation. Mr. Pickens has a great way of helping kids figure out the right decision to make. And he'll use his boyish charm on them to help them with that. But don't take their word for it that it was just something. Okay? Get in there and look. If you don't have access to Family Web Access, 2 accesses in 1 sentence. Call Miss Wolf. She can help you. It triggers an email and things like that. Okay? And if by some chance you gave your son or daughter your credentials to Family Web Access, you need to call and change that, because up until a few days ago, kids could, if they had this information, they could go in and change things. Not that they wouldn't do that. Well, we never got phone calls when they were absent. Or we go and look at the phone number and the last 2 numbers were changed. That's an interesting conversation that happens at home. So, and I joke when I say that, but again, that Family Web Access should be for you. Kids have campus. They can get in and see that stuff through campus that they have on their iPad and stuff like that. Don't share any of that stuff. All right, Family Web Access. I'm going late, I'm sorry. Grades. Okay, we don't send report cards home. We post grades every 3 weeks, but if you really want to look, go into the class because that campus part is live. Okay, the posted grade is only good for about a day, because as soon as a teacher puts something in, that updates everything. All right? So when you pull up grades into Family Web Access, it gives you a posted grade. Click deeper, and it'll go in and show you the whole thing. The only reason, to be honest with you, we post grades is so we can run reports to track kids. If it's not posted, we can't do that. So make sure you dig deeper into that. We don't send report cards home. You can print that right off. If you need help with that, we can help you with that. And then announcements, we do it 2 ways. Everything that we do for students goes through Schoology. They're in 2 groups. They're an FHS student who's an announcement group, and then they're in a grade level group. And we communicate with them that way. And then for you, I send stuff out in a weekly e-blast, and then I'm sure everybody's already looked at all this stuff, because why would you? Right? Everybody's looked at this? Back to school information. Look at all the great stuff that's in here. Look at that. There's all sorts of information that people may have asked me about tonight. No, I'm just kidding. So, if you haven't had a chance to look at this, everything's in here, okay? So, and as things come up, I will post stuff in there. I send out weekly e-blasts. If there's nothing to send out, I don't send anything out. So if you didn't get one week, you didn't miss anything. So I try to only send things out when we really, really need it. And so this is a good place. I talked about the calendar over here. So that calendar right there has all our big dates on it. You can go in there and look. And then the last thing before I get you out of here, people have all sorts of questions, and sometimes it's hard to answer those. We've put together a frequently asked questions page. Take a look at that. We've tried to take all the questions that people ask and put down our answers to it. And so if you look at it, it doesn't make sense, you want more, feel free to contact one of us and we'd be happy to do that. So, if you can't tell, I am super duper excited for the school year. I work all summer, it's super boring in here when nobody's in here. So I can't wait for the kids to get back. I know your kiddos, some of them are probably nervous. Probably the ones that are the most nervous are the ones not acting nervous, like it's no big deal, and things like that. I get that this place can be intimidating because there's a lot of kids in here. We're going to work really hard that first week to make sure that we take care of them and give them that good opportunity. You see things come up, contact us. We can't help if we don't know. All right? I can't tell you how many times people show up and say, well, this has been going on for 4 weeks. Really? It's hard. I mean, so again, I hate to be, no, let us know. We'll help you when we can help and do what we can do to help, but we can't help if we don't know. So, your kiddos are going to be done a little bit. I went a little long. If you have any burning questions, I'll stick around down here. Otherwise, have a great long weekend, and we'll see you guys around. We'll see the kids on Tuesday.